With Justice League coming out this week, I've decided to review some of the DCEU movies, and, well, really re-reviewing some, but, I mean, I never reviewed Man of Steel yet, so, hey, here we are. Now, funny story, when I was a very early teenager and I wanted to make movies, I thought of an idea of doing a reboot of Superman of some sorts, re-exploring his origins in a new and relevant way, and I was going to call it Man of Steel. Well, then, apparently when I went on IMDb a few months later, I found out, wait, that's actually happening? Can't catch a break. But what once was disappointment knowing that I couldn't do a reboot of Superman, calling it Man of Steel, the next moment was excitement, because there was actually a movie that was rebooting Superman called Man of Steel. And when I saw the trailer, I was pumped. This looked amazing. I mean, just look at this trailer. I mean, I still profess that the second trailer, I believe it's the second trailer, is probably one of the greatest trailers of all time. Like, maybe top 2 in my opinion. And when I finally saw it in theaters, I was not let down. I thought it was an excellent way to showcase Superman's backstory and bring Superman to a modern audience. And I watched it recently, and I still loved it just about as much as I did back then. Man of Steel, I do think, is excellent. If it's not in the top 10 of the greatest comic book movies ever made, I think it should at least be in the top 15 or top 20. But as the years went by, I quickly realized this is one of the most controversial films of all time. Some people, like me, love this movie. They think it's an excellent way to reinvigorate the character of Superman. But then others say,
this is too dark and gritty. It's just copying off of Batman. They're turning Superman into Batman.
Which for me is a pretty stupid complaint. And that's what this video is mainly going to be about. It's going to be me reviewing Man of Steel, while also debunking a lot of the criticisms that people have for this movie that I really find to be just, well, what's the word I'm looking for? Unwarranted. Now on to the complaint that people are saying, oh, this is just a Batman movie. They're taking him too seriously. Really? I'm sorry. Have you read Kingdom Come? Like, cause Superman was pretty serious in that. I mean, are you gonna call him Batman in that? Or what about The Dark Knight Returns? He was pretty serious in that too. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I realize there are actually a lot of versions of Superman that are pretty dark and serious in the comics. Also, calling him Batman because he's serious is complete and utter nonsense. I mean, do you want me to call No Country for Old Men a Batman movie because that's serious? Or maybe The Godfather, calling that Batman because that's serious? Regardless if Superman is a comic book character, it's still a character. And so, if you're going to call him Batman because it's serious, then you might as well call every dramatic character Batman, because that's such a blanket and very confusing statement. And to anybody saying, oh, but he's not that dark in the comics, I mean, regardless from the fact that I just proved you wrong, and even if I didn't use that to back me up, here's my main argument. Who the fuck reads comics anymore? Like, I'm not saying whether you should or shouldn't read comics. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying my opinion on reading comics. I'm just going by mathematical data that you can look up yourself on comic book sales, and you'd see that, really, comic book sales are low nowadays. Nobody reads comics. So with that in mind, do you really think that's a really smart argument to make? Trying to say that, oh, it's not accurate to the comics, even though nobody fucking reads comic books anymore? Again, I'm not saying whether you should or shouldn't read comics. That's not what I'm saying. I'm going by the mathematical facts that you can look up yourself on comic book sales, that comic book sales are low. People don't read comic books as much as they did back then. And even then, there's another reason why the whole not being accurate to the comics thing really shouldn't matter. Being accurate to the source material in general doesn't matter. I don't see anybody complaining about Forrest Gump, because Forrest Gump, the movie, is vastly different from the book. The book was a lot darker and had implications of rape, whereas in the movie version, it was made into a very family-friendly film. If you're going to complain that Man of Steel isn't accurate to the original comics because it's dark, then you gotta do that for every other adaptation, because every adaptation is somehow different from the book. And here's another thing to keep in mind. This isn't the comic book. Man of Steel is not the comic book. This is a movie. Sure, Christopher Reeve's Superman might have been more lighthearted, sure, but this isn't that version of Superman. That Superman is there. Like, this does not exist in this world. That's not that Superman. This is this Superman. Take the movie for the context that it is. This is Superman, it's just not that Superman. That Superman is in his own completely separate universe. That's it. Like, this is not the Christopher Reeve Superman. This is not the comic book Superman. This is Man of Steel's interpretation of Superman. Also, I don't really see anybody complaining about The Dark Knight, Logan, or Captain America the Winter Soldier being darker than how the comics originally were. So, why was it okay for those movies and not Man of Steel? Yeah, Superman the movie was iconic, even though I really think it's the most overrated movie of all time. But regardless, it is an iconic film. But like I said, that movie is irrelevant to this. The comics are irrelevant to this. This is its own story. This is its own completely different thing. That's it. Take Man of Steel for what it is. It's not a Batman story, because that's a really stupid argument considering Batman is a very different character, and even then, Superman just being taken more seriously doesn't automatically mean he's Batman. This is just a different interpretation of the character that's put in the 21st century. And if you ask me, that's all the better for it. Because the thing is, with comic book characters, you gotta be relevant to the times. Sure, maybe if I was in the 70s and 80s, this Superman movie would have reflected those times. But it's not the 70s or 80s anymore. This is the 2010s. This version of Superman is for the 2010s. Things are not as black and white as they were back then. Like, nowadays, people question themselves, people question life, people question purpose. In general, people are just very questionable these days. And so with Man of Steel taking this angle with the character of Superman, it makes sense. This guy has lived all of his life thinking he was different from everybody else, which, I mean, really he was. But he had no idea what Krypton was. He had no idea that he had other parents. And when this news is brought onto him, he's in complete shock. He doesn't even know how to really approach this. Should he be fearful? Should he be interested? Should he be sad? He doesn't know what to think. And really, if you put yourself in the guy's shoes, you probably think that way too. How would you approach this news? The news that you're a completely different species from everyone on Earth, and you're more powerful than everyone on Earth. I'm pretty sure it's not all gonna be sunshine and rainbows.
Henry Cavill's a bad Superman. He's so emotionless and boring.
What? I'm sorry, you thought this guy was boring, and yet you thought this guy was the most charismatic motherfucker in the world? Really? When Christopher Reeve's Superman begins to fly, you don't see his reaction. All you see is just him flying. Like, he doesn't, you don't get to see his reaction. You don't see his face. You don't see how this comes across to him. You don't see any of that. Now, what happens when Superman discovers that he can fly? Okay, tell me you would not have a face like that if you discovered you could fly. When Henry Cavill's version of Superman discovers that he can fly, he thinks it's the coolest shit ever. I mean, you're flying. You've officially broken the laws of human being physics. And how did Christopher Reeve's Superman act like when he discovered that he could fly? Oh wow, I can fly. Yay.
Well, Henry Cavill's still not very charismatic. He's not a good guy. He's an asshole. He doesn't smile.
What are you talking about? He is still a good guy. Just look at the bar scene in this movie.
Off that though. I'm serious.
Oh, come on, Chrissy.
Knock it off.
Sit down.
Let me go.
Hey, leave her alone, man.
Or what? Tough guy?
Or gonna have to ask you to leave.
I think I'll probably just leave when I'm good and ready. Oh, there he is.
it, sweetie.
Hey, asshole, don't forget your tip. Steve Rag.
Yeah, he could have easily torn that guy to pieces, but he decided not to, because he knew that it just wouldn't be worth it. And plus, people would just start to fear him again. And I don't know if you know this, but come closer. But you're not gonna come closer? Fine, I'm gonna get closer to you. I'm pretty sure you're not gonna be all sunshine rainbows happy if the last of your kind is threatening the planet that you live on, and you're forced to fight every second for quite a while. Seriously, that's a humongously stressful situation. How is this guy supposed to be, you know, the most happy guy in the world if he's thrown into battle after battle with the last of his own kind, and they are threatening the place that he calls home and innocent lives? Like, I'm sorry, he wasn't given a chance to be, you know, all sunshine, rainbows, smiley, and whatnot. But in the scenes where he's not in peril, he does smile. He does come off as a pretty charismatic guy. It's just he's been thrown into so many horrific situations that he can't really be, you know, doing the smile thing around those times.
Saving people's lives? More like killing people's lives. But whatever the case, Superman didn't care when he was fighting Zod. He was killing people left and right because of the destruction in the city.
Okay, people really need to wrap their brains around this. I mean, for one, you weren't okay with this, and yet you were okay with the Hulk Buster and the Hulk fighting in whatever African city that is in Avengers Age of Ultron. I'm pretty, like, don't tell me people didn't die during that. Or, hell, we could just go to the first Avengers, where, like, the Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, and 2 other people are fighting a bunch of aliens and weird alien whale spaceship things. I mean, you really think people didn't die during those scenes? You know what, maybe you're right. Nobody could have possibly died during that moment in the Avengers. No way in hell that anybody could have lost their lives in that scene. In basic terms, if you're actually complaining about the city destruction in Man of Steel and yet you're completely fine with it in the Avengers, then you're a hypocrite. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth of it. Because the Avengers did the exact same thing in their movie and nobody batted an eye. And even then, the horror of that destruction was brought up in Batman v Superman. And even if you don't like Batman v Superman, you can at least acknowledge that the beginning scene where Bruce Wayne was in Metropolis when that battle happened and you see the horror and the destruction going around him, you gotta at least admit that that scene was very amazing. They took that scene in Man of Steel and basically portrayed it as 9/11 times 10 in that movie. And so even then, it still was portrayed as a horrific and scary event. And for anybody complaining, why didn't he just lead Zod out of the city so that, you know, nobody would get hurt? Okay, well, let's take a look at this clip frame by frame. Yeah, if you really look at this, you can clearly see Superman attempting to lead Zod out of the city. But if you know what Zod said previously, he said, "I'm not gonna stop till every person in this planet is dead. Either you die or I die." Even if Superman tried to lead Zod out of the city, which he clearly just did right there, it wouldn't work anyway because Zod is going after the people. He's gonna kill anybody he finds. So really, Superman is pretty much forced to fight in the city. He has no option. Also, Superman isn't the one who destroys the city, because I watched this movie very carefully, and nearly every time Superman's body came in contact with any building and caused it to fall over, it was almost always whenever he was being flung against the building. And now I'm going to tackle one of the most controversial things about Man of Steel, the ending. Okay, well, I'm going to have to pull a spoiler warning right here. Just mute this until this goes away. After this goes away, I'm not going to bring up that spoiler again, and you can unmute it. Okay? Good. Mute it right now. People complaining that Superman killed Zod in Man of Steel is just so stupid. In case you don't know, and I'm not going to bring up the clip here because, you know, that would be, you know, if you have it muted, then, you know, whatever. But basically, Zod has the weird laser eye thing and is getting ready to kill this family, and they're cornered. They can't get out of it. And so Superman's just trying to get him to stop, and he's telling him, dude, stop, please, like, you don't do this. And then Zod says a very key word, never. And so then Superman is just forced to snap Zod's neck, thusly killing him. Now the fact that anybody would complain about this scene just really bugs me, and I just really gotta question them. For one, there was no way of stopping Zod. There was no chance in hell that he could be stopped unless Superman killed him. He says 3 very key things. 1, I'm not gonna stop until every human on Earth is dead. 2, there's only one way this is gonna end. Either you die or I die. And finally, the last thing he says, which I just told you, when Superman's telling him, please stop, don't do this, he says, never. He's not gonna stop. So, what was Superman supposed to do? Like, was he supposed to let Zod kill that family? No! There was no way out of that situation. But Christian, he could have easily blocked his eyes. And? What after that? After that, what is he supposed to do? Like, if he didn't kill Zod, Zod would just keep doing the same thing over and over again. He was never going to stop. His goal after the whole terraforming planet machine thing was destroyed, well, actually not even really destroyed, it just went to a black hole. He said, I will kill every person on this planet. And he was never going to stop. So, the only way Superman could stop him was to kill him.
But Christian, Superman never killed in the comics.
Really? Look hard. Look real hard and tell me Superman has never killed anybody in any comic book. I'm not even a comic reader, and I'm 100% positive that Superman has killed people in the comics. I'm 100% positive. And even then, again, within the context of this film, he was never given that rule. If push came to shove, which it did, he was going to kill Zod. He had no choice to. There was no way out of it. In fact, if anything, if Superman did not kill Zod, that would make his character weak. Because look, I go by the philosophy that, look, I'm not saying, be some sort of murderer or anything, going out and be, killing people everywhere. But I'm pretty sure if you were put in a certain scenario, you would kill. You would kill. Like, if you're a parent, you'd probably kill for your kid's safety. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you're trying to protect something you love. If Superman did not kill Zod, that would show that he does not have the conviction to do what's right. Again, what was he supposed to do? Let that family be killed by this guy? This guy who's clearly overpowering them. And in fact, the most important reason, they're innocent people. They're innocent people not even involved in their skirmish. This is between Superman and Zod. They should not have to suffer for those two fighting. And so, Superman had to kill Zod. There was no way out of it. And as I said before, this doesn't betray the Superman character because, for one, within the context of this film, he was never given a no-killing rule. And secondly, Superman has killed so many times in the comics, I guarantee that. I guarantee 100% that he has killed dozens of people in the comics. Now, did Superman want to kill Zod? No. You clearly see that in Henry Cavill's really good performance. This is probably his best scene in the movie. You can see that he doesn't want to kill Zod. He's giving him every opportunity to stop what he's doing. He's telling Zod, please stop, don't do this. And push came to shove. That family was about to get killed, and he had to do the only thing he could, killing Zod. There was zero way out of that situation without killing Zod. There was no way out of that situation. He had to do that. There were no other options. Zod gave him no other options but to kill him. And anybody who says that Superman is not a hopeful figure in this movie, I gotta really question that logic. I don't mean to bring up a meme in here. Actually, I don't know if it's really a meme because it's actually not a humorous one. But just look at this one right here. this shows Superman's impact on people. He's changed people. He brought out the best in people. And that's this Superman, the Henry Cavill Superman. Sure, he may not have been smiling a whole lot throughout this movie, but that's because he was thrown into dire situations where I'm pretty sure being a happy motherfucker isn't like the ideal thing. And when he's not, he is a very charming and likable character. He is a good guy. This just takes the Superman character and puts it in our modern world. Because in the modern world, things are not black and white. Like, yeah, you have enemies out there, but there's also overcoming doubts about yourself, doubts about like where you came from, confusion. The old Superman movie never did this, and even when it did, it was only at surface level. This movie, Man of Steel, does go into depth with Superman's backstory and why he feels like it's the good thing to do to save people. You see him as a kid just trying to overcome basic things like his super hearing and his X-ray vision. I mean, this is a little kid with these powers and he has no idea what to do with them. He can't control them. He's scared. The old Superman never did this. When he got powers, he was just the best at them 100%. But Man of Steel, just like any other superhero origin movie, shows that Superman is not perfect at what he does at first. He's not going to be able to fly perfectly within the first leap. He's not going to be able to control his X-ray vision immediately. He's not going to be able to control his super hearing immediately. He has to learn to adapt. Just like how Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins had to adapt to different technology whenever something didn't work. And the same thing goes for Peter Parker and the Amazing Spider-Man. Whenever he came across an obstacle within his crime fighting, he had to adapt. And whenever Superman comes into conflict with his powers, he has to learn to adapt. He has to find a way around that situation. This is what makes Man of Steel so great. I loved Man of Steel. It made Superman a very human character for the 21st century. And the villain, Zod, is very compelling when you really look into what he's feeling and what his plans were. Because he's not just some guy who wants to destroy a world. He's a guy who wants to protect his own species. He wants to make sure his own species survives. He didn't go about it in the best way possible, but we can at least identify for why he was wanting to do that in the first place. Doesn't mean we agree with him, but we can at least understand where he's coming from. He's not just some guy who wants to take over the world. He has a legitimate reason to do so, and it's executed very well. Although I will say the kiss scene between Superman and Lois Lane in this movie was out of nowhere. Like, really? What kind of romantic chemistry did those two have before that scene? And it also doesn't help that there's a really cringeworthy line of dialogue where Lois says, you know how they say everything goes downhill after the first kiss? Yeah, I will admit that scene was pretty stupid. But regardless, I'm going to give Man of Steel a 9 out of 10. Easily the best Superman movie we've gotten yet. Better than any Superman movie we've gotten thusly. Stay tuned for my next DCEU movie review, which I tackle Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. So, what do you think of Man of Steel? Did this video at least help you understand why I feel this way? Let me know down in the comments below what you thought. Give this video a like, share the video so we can get the channel circulated, and if you want to see more, click this.